Kia ora friends, welcome to the first presentation in this series on body composition. In this presentation, we're going to dive into calories and why they matter and how they affect body composition for not only fat loss, but for muscle gain and for muscle maintenance, or I should say weight maintenance. And yeah, let's just jump straight in. There's a fair bit to get through in this one, and I know you're going to love it. So why do calories matter? While they're not the whole picture, they form an integral part of changing body composition. So often you'll hear the touted response of like, stop focusing on calories, or calories don't matter. The reality is they do matter a lot, but the implementation of whatever calorie change you're wanting to make, whether it's a deficit or a gain or a maintenance, that's where it gets tricky. But the reality is the energy balance side of things, calories in, calories out, that's a simple equation. And it does matter, but it's not the whole picture. For fat loss, we must create a deficit of energy by reducing calories in order to achieve specific weekly fat loss rates. So we have to basically consume less than we are burning off per day in order to form a deficit, to burn more energy than we're consuming, and induce weekly weight loss at a rate that is appropriate for you, and which we're going to discuss shortly. For muscle gain, it's essential we increase calories to ensure we provide the optimal environment for growth. So muscle tissue doesn't come out of thin air. If we want to grow muscle, especially after your first sort of year of those newbie gains, we actually have to dedicate specific gaining periods where we increase calories to induce weight gain, and in doing so increase muscle gain, right? So it's creating this optimal environment for growth, for creating new tissue. So the energy balance equation, this is what it all comes down to. We've got our energy coming in, and this is through food and through drink. Everything that you consume is your energy that's coming in. Now, energy going out is the other side of the equation, where we have our BMR, or our basal metabolic rate. This is just all the energy we're burning at rest when we're not doing anything. That's the energy your body needs to survive, basically. And then NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is all the non-formal exercise component. So things like you walking around the shopping center, or it's things like you fidgeting and moving my hands like this unconsciously. That would be considered NEAT as well. So it's all the unconscious and non-formal exercise component, and this is the component that we can change the most when it comes to body composition. Then we have, I missed that one. We have TEF, which is thermic effect of food. This is all the energy that's utilized or used when we are digesting and metabolizing our food. And there's certain macronutrients that have higher thermic effect of food than others. For example, protein is one of the highest thermic effect of food, which means that if we increase protein intake, we will have a slight, very small increase in thermic effect of food, or increase in calorie consumption, I should say calorie expenditure, from increasing our protein intake. So thermic effect of food is another energy outside of the equation. And then we have EEE there, which is exercise energy expenditure. This is all our formal exercise that we do in order to burn energy, or just formal exercise we do for fun that is burning energy. So those are the kind of the equation for energy balance. When it comes down to it, if we put it really simply, if energy in equals energy out, then we have weight maintenance, right? So if we're eating the same amount that we're burning off, the weight is going to be stable. It's going to be fluctuating all throughout the week, but over the long term, we've got a nice weight stable place to be. And this is where we want really everyone to spend most of their time, and we want people to get to long term, as a place of weight stability. Obviously, a very hard thing to do in an obesogenic environment where we're surrounded by hyperpalatable foods and calorically dense foods and easy access foods, right? But it is something we can work towards. If energy in is greater than energy out, we are going to have weight gain, right? So this is that sort of calorie surplus, bulking, massing kind of phase where we're gaining body weight intentionally, or not intentionally, if it is just someone gaining weight based off an increased calorie consumption for whatever reason, or a decreased energy output, from whatever factors and things going on in their lives that has caused that scenario to happen. But energy in greater than energy out, we have weight gain. And then lastly here, energy in is less than energy out, we have weight loss. Okay, so pretty simple thing to understand is the energy balance equation. But we have to set this as the foundation so that everybody is on the same page here. That the energy balance equation really is what it comes down to at the end of the day. But then everything we're going to discuss in the rest of these presentations is how do we change these energy balance equations? How do we affect these through our food, through our movement, through our macronutrient choices, and how do we actually create change in body composition? So we have a hierarchy of fat loss and muscle gain, and this is specifically for vegans. I've put these ones together. So this is putting things in perspective as to what's the most important thing when it comes to fat loss and what's the most important thing when it comes to muscle gain. So the fat loss hierarchy basically says that the energy balance equation is number one, right? It's the foundation. So are you in a deficit? Are you eating less than you are consuming? Sorry, are you consuming less than you are burning throughout the day? Then we have protein, also very important, muscle retention, thermic effect of food like we just chatted about, and the satiety effect of protein as well. It does keep us a little fuller than the other macronutrients. We have carbs and fats next up, sleep, micronutrients, nutrient timing, and supplements, not so important. So the more important things are at the bottom, the foundation of the pyramid. The further we go up, the least importance they are, the less effect they're going to have on your results. And so something probably to focus less on, is those supplements and those nutrient timings. But your energy balance, how much calories you're taking in, your protein intake, and your carbs and fats, those are all really important things to focus on. Overarching all of this is adherence. Are you actually able to stick to the plan? All right, because if you've got the most optimal plan in the world, if you can't adhere to that, it's not a good plan for you, right? So it's got to work within your lifestyle. It's got to be something you can commit to and do consistently for it to be optimal. On the right, we have muscle gain hierarchy, slightly different, but pretty much the same in the same type. So energy balance is the foundation, of course. Then we have protein diversity and quality, and then we have protein frequency, and this is all under the umbrella of total protein. So total protein being the most important factor here, that we get a significant amount of protein per day for muscle gain. Then we want to make sure that we're having a diverse range of protein so that we're not only consuming one kind of protein throughout the day. And we want to make sure that that quality of protein is a high quality protein source as well, so that we're getting a range of amino acids. Protein frequency is also rather important for muscle gain. We'll discuss why shortly or in the next presentation. Carbs and fats, also relatively important for muscle gain for various reasons. And supplements, nutrient timing, and micronutrients, much less important when it comes to muscle gain. And of course, adherence again is overarching that whole thing there. So as you can see, the most important thing when it comes to changing body composition is our energy balance. Are we taking in the right amount of calories? Are we taking the right amount of protein? And then all the other things can be assessed as to how important they are for you and for the individual, right? So how many carbohydrates you should be eating for your activity needs based on whether you're a sports athlete or you're an endurance athlete or you're a bodybuilder. How much fats do we need based on preference? Do I really enjoy high fat foods as opposed to carbohydrate foods? How much fats do I need to optimize hormonal function? These are all things that we have to think about from an individual perspective. And then, of course, supplements, micronutrients is an important side of things for vegans as well. Moving on, which route should you actually take? So should you go down the fat loss route, the muscle gain route, or the weight maintenance route? So when it comes to body composition change, we just have to know which route are we going to take, right? So let's cover off fat loss and cutting phase. Why would you choose a fat loss phase? Number one, you'd probably choose it if your BMI or body fat percentage is outside of a healthy range, right? So if you have been to the doctor and they've said, hey, look, your current body fat percentage is a health risk for certain cardiovascular diseases, other chronic diseases that you may be prone to, such as type 2 diabetes, these types of things that we see are associated with higher body weights, then yeah, maybe you'll be looking into a fat loss phase. Blood markers signify health risk. So if you've had your bloods done and your triglycerides are high, or your LDL is really high, things like this, where we are going to look at diet and lifestyle interventions to ensure that we do improve those. And one of the things that will really improve those blood markers is a drop in body weight. So you would go into fat loss phase there. Higher body weight affecting daily living, activities, opportunities, etc. So sometimes I have this with clients if they come to me, hey, I really want to lose some body weight because I can't do the things I want to do. Whether it's going skydiving, or whether it's applying for a certain job that you have to be under a certain weight, or whatever it may be. These are great reasons as to why someone would want to drop body fat so that they can live the life that they feel they are destined to live. You got an event coming up, so perhaps someone's got a wedding coming up, a trip overseas to Bali, whatever it may be, and they want to drop some body weight. And if that's their goal, that's their goal. And we're not here to judge that. That's super cool. I do the same thing myself sometimes, is just lean up a little bit for certain events. And so, that's one of the reasons someone might go into a fat loss phase. Competitive athlete, that needs to be a certain weight class or body fat percentage. So, for example, you've got powerlifters or MMA athletes that have to be at a certain weight. Then they're going to want to go into a fat loss phase. And, of course, you've got competitive bodybuilders who need to be certain body fat percentages as well. And then you've got people that just have a specific physique-based goal. They want to attain a certain physique that they've always admired, and they want to, implement a fat loss phase in order to do that. And then, of course, there's those that are just not happy with the current body fat levels that they have. Lastly, a big one is people that are brand new to training and want to do body recomposition, which is basically losing fat and building muscle at the same time. So for those specific individuals, we would put them into a direct fat loss phase. Gaining and bulking phase. So if you're starting really lean already, you're one of those people that are just already, sit a really lean body weight and body fat percentage the whole year round, then going into a gaining phase is the thing you would want to do. People that are at a normal body weight with no training experience, it's probably a good idea to go into a very moderate, a very conservative gaining phase where the goal is to gain body weight, but in doing that to gain a lot of muscle mass and strength. So, great time for people who are brand new to the gym to just get in there, crush it, build some strength, build some muscle, and make use of those newbie gains, right? Without being in the scenario of being in a calorie deficit where, muscle gain is going to be there if you're new to training, but it's not going to be as optimal if you was in a isocaloric state or a calorie surplus. So someone who's been training for a while and not seeing results in muscle and strength, they may need to implement a specific muscle gain phase in order to gain more strength, more muscle mass, in order to provide the substrate for that new tissue to be added. Someone who's just finished the fat loss phase and a weight maintenance phase. So they've gone through a fat loss phase, they've done a weight maintenance phase to ensure that they can stabilize and maintain that body weight long term. And then they might decide, hey, look, I'm ready to put on some muscle mass. I'm going to go into a muscle gain phase now. And so going for more of a phasic approach to your nutrition, a periodized approach to your nutrition across years to eventually get to the physique goal that you're after. And then we've got off-season competitive athletes who, should be in a bit of a gaining phase or a surplus to maximize their performance off-season, build strength, build power, build explosiveness, build some muscle mass, so that for the next season they're at a new sort of body weight point, a new level of muscle mass, a new level of strength, all these things. And then anyone wanting to maximize strength and or other training performance. So it's just a good place to be in if you want to maximize your performance in any kind of sport and any kind of modality, is increasing calories, right? Ensure that you are providing enough energy to not only do the normal activities as a human, but also do the activities that you're performing to a high level. And then lastly, here we have the maintenance phase. This would be for people who had just finished a fat loss phase. So they might have just done a 8-week, 10-week, 12-week fat loss phase. Now you need to spend some time actually maintaining that body weight. Arguably the most important part of a nutritional intervention is teaching somebody, educating somebody on how to maintain that weight loss. Maintenance phases can be used in between fat loss phases as well. So if someone is, wanting to lose a large amount of body weight, 20, 30 kilograms, would need to be implementing maintenance phases between fat loss phases of 8 to 12 weeks. In between gaining phases, another great time to have a maintenance phase. So gaining to a certain point, maintaining that new body weight, and then going up a little higher and seeing if you can gain a little more weight, a little more muscle mass, and then maintaining that again. And then maintenance phases are great for prioritizing health-based habits, right? So this is where most people should be hanging out long-term, is in that maintenance phase, maintaining calorie intake, maintaining energy expenditure, and focus on health-based habits. Those standard things that we want to implement long-term for longevity, for the benefit of our health and benefit of our own relationship with food as well. And of course, a maintenance phase is a really great thing for people to be focused on if they have a previous history of disordered eating. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're not going into any kind of religious tracking or over obsession with numbers or the scale. We want to actually be focused on those health habits that we discussed. And then a maintenance phase for someone who is in a no or a minimal training period. So something like, COVID lockdowns where no one can train, or they can train, or they don't have the equipment, at home that they can't use. So, that is a minimal training period or a no training period, which I would suggest going to maintenance for those periods as well. Just because your output in terms of training is not going to be as high. You might not have the stimulus required from your training to support muscle growth. So it's best to just be at maintenance intake, maintain your body weight, and then you can go into either phase when you're back into a training period again. Cool. So those are the main reasons as to what we would do. Now, what we are going to do here, guys, is actually give you the tools and the steps to calculate your own calories, to set those calories for whatever body composition goal that you have. So number one is you calculate your maintenance, and it's super simple. All you need to do, obviously there's calculators online that you can use that will all get you within the ballpark. It's not about being super accurate. It's about getting you a starting point. It's as easy as body weight times 22 for females or 24 for males. So we'll go through an example of this in a moment. You then multiply that by 1.1 all the way up to 1.7 based on daily activity. So if you're someone who's super sedentary, they're in an office all day, you sit down in the evenings watching Netflix, you don't move at all, you maybe get like under 3,000 steps a day, you'd be 1.1, 1.2 is what you times that number by. If you're someone who's literally walking all day and you just feel like you're quite a lean individual naturally, you might go higher, 1.6, 1.7. And then in the middle ground there, we have people that are generally pretty active, on their feet some of the day. They have, they might be sit down joggers, but they might be like me who, walks my dog 3 times a day and gets a decent amount of steps. And then you'll be going in those middle numbers, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 times the maintenance intake that you have. So as an example of this using a fat loss or a cutting phase, you would calculate basically a rate of weight loss that is appropriate for you. And this might be anywhere from 0.25% of your body weight all the way up to 1% of your body weight. So these are good numbers to sit in for a fat loss phase, not too aggressive, but also not so slow that you're not seeing results. So deciding, and based off various factors we're not going to cover here, deciding how fast you actually want to lose body weight. And there's pros and cons of fast and slow rates of weight loss. You would multiply that by 7,700, right? And that would basically give you the amount of calories that you need to take away from your weekly intake. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. So multiply by 7,700, and then you're going to divide that by 7 in order to get your reduction in calories per day. Okay, so as an example, 80 kilogram individual, they want to lose 1% of their body weight per week in body fat. So they're going to times their body weight, 80 kilograms, by 0.01, which is going to equal 0.8 kilos of weight loss per week, right? And so now we need to turn that 0.8 kilograms of weight loss per week into a calorie number that we can take away from our maintenance calorie intake. So what that would equal is 0.8 times 7,700. Okay, so when it times it by 7,700 equals 6,160. Divide that by 7 days in a week, and we get 880 calories that we're going to need to reduce from their maintenance intake. So that's quite a large chunk. So it just depends on how good you are at adhering to lower calorie intakes, how fast you want to go. So 880 calorie deficit each day. Okay, so that's based off your maintenance. So taking your maintenance from above there, 22 times your body weight or 24 times your body weight, then multiply that by your activity factor, anywhere from 1.1 to 1.7. That's going to give you your maintenance intake. And then based off the rate of weight loss you want to achieve, you're going to take away your deficit, so 880 calories here, off that maintenance intake. Hopefully that makes sense for you. And if it doesn't, that's what I'm here for, to give you the numbers yourself if you want to go further into coaching with me. Gaining and bulking phase. In order to limit fat gain, which is inevitable with the gaining phase, you have to be aware that when you gain muscle mass, you're also gaining some body fat. It's just going to happen. Increase calories just to 200, 300 above maintenance to start. So it doesn't have to be super aggressive. We want to make sure that this is a slow and controlled gaining phase, 200 to 300 calories over maintenance. the lower end for lower body weight people and the higher end for higher body weight people, right? So if you're, a lighter female or a lighter male, anywhere from like 50 to 60 kilograms, you're going to go only, maybe 150 to 200 calories above your maintenance. If you're a larger guy or a larger female, you're going to want to make sure that your calories are a little bit more aggressive, 300, maybe 300 plus above maintenance to ensure that you're getting into a calorie surplus. And there are adaptive processes within the body that you might find within the first, 4 weeks of a gaining phase that it's no longer a surplus for you. You've actually ramped up spontaneous calorie expenditure. And that way, the calories you're consuming now means that you're now at maintenance and you have to make another jump up. Highly individual due to NEAT and other expenditure. So like I just mentioned, this is going to be very, very individual. This is just a starting point. Different people have different adaptive processes in terms of the calorie intakes that they have. Some people may have that calorie intake set for them, and then that will allow them to keep gaining for the next 6 months without having to change anything. Other people, their bodies will adapt to that relatively quickly, and that will no longer be a gaining phase. And the same thing goes for fat loss phases as well. Some people can stay on the same calories for their entire fat loss phase and lose a significant amount of body weight. Other people have to continuously make adjustments to keep pace with the adaptations that the body is making to that fat loss. So trial and error is key. The one thing that I'll mention here is body fat set point theory, which is basically stating that, if someone has 80 kilograms and they're wanting to push up to 85 kilograms, the body is basically really happy at 80 kilograms. That's its kind of homeostasis. So it's going to, put in place some adaptations, rev up metabolism, rev up energy expenditure throughout the day, unconscious activity, all these types of things to increase energy expenditure to get that body weight back down to 80 kilograms. And the same goes the other way. Depending on the individual's adaptive processes, they may want to get down to 70 kilograms from 80 kilograms, but their body is really happy at 80, right? That's a nice homeostatic position for them. And then, throughout that dieting phase, there'll be, reductions in leptin, the hunger hormone, satiety hormone, increases in ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. There'll be changes in NEAT, your daily activity, your daily movement, these types of things, changes in hunger that will affect your ability to stick to that calorie allowance, and basically your body's trying to get you back to that homeostatic position. So some people adapt harder than others. It's just an individual thing, and we have to work with the individual with that as well. So just be aware that this is not a static thing. These things do change over time. And it's just about monitoring body weight over time, ensuring that you are meeting your body weight goals for a gaining phase. And that might be, just around 1 to 2% of your body weight per month is a really good place to sit for any gaining phase. And it's a very small amount of gain per month, but it is a really good place to be if you want to maximize muscle gain and minimize fat gain during that process. With the maintenance phase, it's just about monitoring body weight, taking averages from week to week and seeing how that changes over time. The big one here is taking an average from a minimum of 2-week period. So if you've just come out of a gaining phase or a fat loss phase into a maintenance phase, you're going to want to make sure that you don't change anything for at least 2 weeks, right? So monitoring your body weight at a certain calorie intake for at least 2 weeks, see what the changes are. If it's trending down or up, you can then make adjustments based that. So make small adjustments up or down based on body weight trends. So that's really the key points for adjusting your calorie intake based on whatever goal you have in terms of your body composition. So how do we adjust that long term to see the changes that we want to make? Coming to a bit of a close here, a recipe that really works for most people that I've seen and based on the people that I work with is people that are generally newish to training. First 3 to 12 months is a lot of the time who I'm working with is relatively new to training. So a lot of, probably maybe, let's say 70% of people I work with are in this sort of this bracket here, and then the other 30% would be people who are much more experienced with training, who we can do some slightly different models with. But people who are relatively new to training, they've got those kind of newbie gains coming on. They can see a lot of progress early on. They'll gain substantial lean muscle tissue and strength while in a calorie deficit, as long as resistance training and protein is sufficient, which we'll discuss more in coming presentations. But this is a great place for most people to be, is to apply a moderate deficit, about 0.5% of body weight per week. So not as aggressive as the example we showed you, which was 1% of body weight. 0.5 is a good place to be. And then set appropriate training volume, intensity, and frequency. So we're going to discuss that in the training presentation to come. So making sure we're having sufficient amount of training to stimulate muscle growth, basically. Adding in a protein, sufficient protein quality. Sufficient protein quantity, quality, and frequency throughout that phase to ensure that we are supplying what we need in terms of amino acids for building those new muscle proteins, right? Absolutely essential, and that will equal consistent reductions in body fat while building muscle. So this is a really good place for most people in those kind of new areas of training, is to go into a bit of a fat loss phase, but at the same time prioritizing muscle gain, and you can do sort of a bit of both at the same time. For others that are over that sort of 12-month period of new proximity to new training, I would suggest going into either direct fat loss phases or direct muscle gain phases for body composition goals. But for those that are new to it, doing a bit of both is a great way to go. And that is it for this particular presentation. Body composition is ultimately a result of your lifestyle. Calorie intake, energy output, social, relational, economic, and emotional factors all play a role. It's very complex. The numbers can be simple. Implementing them is just not that simple, right? So this is a pretty overarching presentation, give you a bit of the bare bones of how to choose what kind of body composition route you want to go down, give you some numbers to work with, and let you go away and have a play with that. But again, it is a highly complex thing to go through, and there's a lot of moving factors within a body composition change, and we have to roll with the punches, we have to adapt, we have to be flexible in order to adhere to it long term, which is going to give us those results. Up next is all about protein. So that's the next presentation. Look out for that one. We're going to discuss why it's important, how to get it, and what ways to implement it, and all specific to vegan. So it's a really exciting presentation, and I'll see you there.